Hello, thank you all for being here and welcome to From the Other Side of the Border, Sawyer Seminar Virtual Film Festival. This event is part from the Sawyer Seminar Rethinking the Dynamic Interplay of Migration, Race, and Ethnicity in the Caribbean and Latin America, organized by the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies. We are very excited to have here Brazilian filmmaker Eliane Caffé and Dominican American writer Maritza Pérez. Before going on, I have to thank to the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies and Patsy Lewis, Professor Jerry Augusto and Professor Leila Lennon for making this event possible. So the idea of this event is to have a conversation about migration and film, art. We have two films that we will be talking about and discussing today, which are Stateless, from a film by Michelle Stevenson, and Era Woto Cambridge, a film by Eliane Caffé, and we are also very happy to have Eliane here. Before starting, I also wanted to say that this event will be, we have the options to listen the event either in English or in Portuguese or in just in the original languages. There's a globe symbol at the down part of your Zoom, on your screen, and then you can put the language in which you want to hear the event. If you want to keep it as it is, you can keep the original sound option. So first of all, I will present our guests. Maritza Pérez is a Dominican American writer who came to the United States at a young age and who has lived in New York City and more recently in New Mexico. She has written novels and short stories, most notably her novel Geographies of Home from 1999. She has also taught writing workshops and contributed to the publications Bomb, Latina, and Kalalu. She has received awards for her work from the New York Foundation for the Arts, Pauline and Henry Louis Gates Fellowship, El Diario, and UCross Foundation. Eliane Caffé is a Brazilian filmmaker born in São Paulo. Her films Kenoma, 1998, The Storytellers, 2003, and The Midday Sun, 2009, have been screened at numerous festivals all over the world and have won many awards. She has also directed TV series and documentaries with an experimental angle, in addition to coordinating audiovisual collectives in conflictive areas of inland Brazil. The Cambridge Squatter, or Era Woto Cambridge, a docufiction about a squatted hotel in downtown São Paulo, was one of the projects selected for Films in Progress at the San Sebastián Festival in 2015 and was selected in Horizontes Latinos 2016. We also have here Professors Jerry Augusto from Africana Studies and Leila Lennon from Portuguese and Brazilian Studies. Both of them are responsible of making this happen. So just to start, I wanted to ask both Eliane and Maritza a very general question about their work. So I was wondering, how does migration, broadly speaking, relates to your creative work, to your film, to your writing? Thank you.
I guess I'll start. As you said, my first novel was titled Geographies of Home. That title in and of itself speaks to migration and immigration. And the one I'm working on now is titled Beyond the Pale. And I'll explain that a bit because Beyond the Pale is an old colonial British expression. Beyond the pale, pails were sticks. There fences were made of. So beyond the pale is anybody who was considered other from the other side. And thank you for introducing me. It sounded sophisticated, but frankly, I'm a storyteller. Everybody assume, well, my family and a lot of Dominicans assume that I'm a tall tale, which means I'm a liar because beyond the pale, I write about what is often not said. And I say I'm a liar because I don't exist. I mean, no hay negros en la República Dominicana. There are no Black people in the Dominican Republic, supposedly, just like Chile refuses to acknowledge that there are Afro-Latinos and they have yet to count them, and Mexico just started counting them 2 years ago. So, race and gender have a lot to do with the current migrations, and I'll speak more later about what's going on in the Dominican Republic, but colonialism was built on white supremacy, you know, and Spain was notorious for its hierarchies of race. And until this day, those hierarchies exist. And you know, most Latin American countries and too many Caribbean countries want to act as if we're the other. If we're Black, we must be Haitian, we must be migrants, we must not belong. And I like to say Afro peoples have been in every country of Latin America and the Caribbean before any of those countries were nations. That's how long our existence has predated even nations, but till this day, the habit is to deny us.
Eliane.
Eliane, I think you're muted.
Desculpa, qual é a pergunta? Desculpa.
A pergunta é como sua obra está relacionada com a migração.
Então, eu acho que aqui em São Paulo, onde eu moro, no Brasil, né, a gente tem visto nos últimos anos uma explosão de chegada, né, dos refugiados. A migração dentro do Brasil existe há muito tempo, né? Desde o Brasil colônia. Esse fenômeno, né, da migração interna do país nos polos onde se concentra a economia. Agora, o que é um fenômeno novo é essa migração que vem com os refugiados de vários países do mundo e que só cresce. Então, a cidade de São Paulo hoje, se você anda pela cidade, existem partes da cidade que você só vê os africanos, né? Vai mudando completamente a face, né? O comportamento, vamos dizer assim, da cidade com a chegada dessas novas culturas que vão se misturando. Ao mesmo tempo, isso tem um impacto social tremendo, porque não existe políticas públicas no Brasil, nem para os brasileiros, vamos dizer. Agora a gente acha que vamos entrar numa fase melhor com o governo Lula, mas o fato é que para os imigrantes e para os refugiados praticamente não existe. Então, eles chegam aqui e ficam literalmente à deriva. E aí, hoje em dia, faz parte da paisagem desse lugar a presença dessas diferentes culturas, né? E então eu acho que não tem como não olhar para isso, né? Porque eu moro aqui perto do centro, eu saio de casa, são grupos que vêm da Palestina, muitos árabes vêm para cá, os africanos, muitos haitianos, africanos de diferentes países, né? Muitos haitianos também. E então, enfim, nesse sentido é que não tem como não ver isso, né? Claro, muita gente não vê isso, né? A ideologia trata de esconder isso. E aí esse fenômeno aparece com diferentes caras. Então, uma delas é a questão de que muitos desses migrantes, principalmente os negros, a negritude, ela acaba, vamos dizer assim, tendo uma camada a mais, né? Os refugiados que vêm dos países da raça negra aqui chegam e eles têm uma camada a mais do que outros refugiados, né? Vamos dizer assim, que vêm ou da Síria ou mesmo da Palestina, né? Então é isso. Gostei muito, muito de ouvir. Loída, o seu nome? O seu nome é Loída? Your name is Loída?
Loída Maritza. ¿Loída o Maritza?
Ah, tú hablas. Ah, claro, es dominicana, hablas perfectamente el español.
Español.
Me ha gustado mucho oírte, Loída.
Oh, gracias. Igualmente, estaba.
Yo siempre pido a las personas, no sé si es posible pedir aquí también, que se pueden poner las cámaras abiertas, porque nosotros estamos ahora em uma outra fase de comunicação, onde não vemos as pessoas, só lemos os nomes. Então, quem pode, que abram as câmeras, que é muito melhor mirar a la gente, mirar a los ojos. A Glenda, a Kate, né?
Eliane, let me explain. Deixe-me esclarecer. Quando chegarmos à abertura mais larga para os participantes, então vamos poder ver outros. No início, é só os membros do painel, que somos nós, e depois temos 2 intérpretes, Glinda e Iago, mas fica melhor eles ficarem para fazer o seu trabalho de interpretação, é por isso que eles fecharam a câmera. Mas quando chegarmos a uma outra fase, vamos poder pedir, eu creio que os técnicos podem fazer isso, e poderemos todos vermos no ecrã. Mas por agora somos só nós, os 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, o painel de 5 pessoas, por enquanto. Ok?
Okay.
Marcel.
Yeah, I think we can pass to your questions, maybe Leila or Jerry, and we can continue with the talk.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'll go first, and I'll ask the question in English, and then I can translate it into Portuguese as well. So my question is also a more general question, and it's directed to both of you. My question is, what role do you think that storytelling, because both of you tell stories, right, about migration, what role does storytelling play in the migratory experience? Eliane, então a minha pergunta é para vocês duas, né, uma pergunta mais geral também, e é a pergunta sobre que papel você acha que a contação de histórias, né, as histórias, joga na experiência migratória, porque tanto tu, né, no Era Hotel Cambridge, como a Maritza, né, conectam essa ideia de contar histórias com a experiência migratória.
Thank you, Leila. I love that question because I've been thinking a lot about narratives. I like to say narratives are foundational to every aspect of our lives. You know, whether it's culture, class, religion, academic, politics, economics, even health policies. It's about the stories that get told. And then those stories that get told get fed into policies. And the same thing with immigration and migration, et cetera. So storytelling is essential. And unfortunately, historically, there have been too many narratives that do not get told. And just a little background for everybody listening. I'm a writer. I'm reclusive. I tend to be a hermit, but something happened to me during the pandemic. And I founded this organization called Afromundo, specifically because I was having a little bit of discomfort with the narratives that were happening around Black Lives Matter and Latinos' response to Black Lives Matter, like not really knowing we support them. And I'm like, it's not that we support them, we are them. And there were too many narratives that I was missing. And so I had to come out from behind the table because I felt like, okay, writing is no longer enough at this juncture in history. And I had to step out from behind the desk and get into an uncomfortable spot of being more of a public person to be able to facilitate narratives between African Americans, Afro-Latinos, Indigenous, meaning to give not just presenters and artists the opportunity to share their narratives, but to give audiences the chance to share their narratives. And by narratives, I mean narratives can be film or literature or a panel discussion or culinary or music or dance. It's all a different language. It's all a way of telling stories. And too many stories have been excluded. And so, like a lunatic, yeah, we founded this organization. We don't get paid. We fundraise to make it possible. And everything is free to the general public because our attitude is, in order to be part of this discussion and in order to share narratives, that participation should not depend on income. And so it should be available to everybody because I think we need to start thinking differently and have those conversations, not just in academic settings or in conferences, but within community, because more narratives need to be shared because they impact immigration. You know, the fact that there are so many anti-immigration laws in this country, and in Dominican Republic also, you know, with Dominican Republic, it's because, you know, there are no Blacks here. They must be Haitian, they must be African. They need to be kicked out as if we are not part of it because we are the secret. We are the silences. And that silence needs to be broken. So I am thrilled to be sharing this conversation with a filmmaker who is sharing narratives that, because, you know, sometimes visual impact is so strong for audiences. So narratives are crucial. Thank you for that question.
Então, talvez uma das coisas mais complexas que a gente se defronta hoje é com esse ponto, né? Pensando que cada identidade individual ou coletiva, ela é uma narrativa, né? Cada identidade. E nós temos várias identidades numa mesma identidade. Então, a gente somos seres narrativos, não sei como dizer. A diferença, né, que eu vejo, e é um pouco o que a Loída estava falando, que antigamente era o corpo só que era o instrumento, né? E hoje o que acontece é que a gente produz narrativas já partindo dessas identidades que já são previamente conformadas, né, por um sistema que faz isso através da educação, da religião, de vários aspectos, ideologicamente falando. Então, já tem uma primeira camada, vamos dizer, né, de acessar essas narrativas. Depois, um segundo momento é que toda a fruição da narrativa hoje, ela depende dessas máquinas, a grande maioria, né? E essas máquinas, a gente sabe que elas não são democráticas, né? Não as máquinas em si, mas a maneira como se manipula a informação. Ao mesmo tempo, eu percebo nesse arco de vida, de tempo de vida que eu tenho, que eu acho impressionante ver que nos últimos 10 anos, pelo menos no Brasil, né, explodiu essa questão, e nos últimos, vamos dizer assim, nos últimos 5 anos para cá, mesmo na era Bolsonaro, explodiu as narrativas que vêm da população LGBTQIA+, narrativas de gênero, narrativa dos indígenas, que eram muito, muito, muito silenciadas, e agora da negritude, e também dos refugiados, né, que vão chegando aí. Mas o que eu acho muito importante frisar é que essas narrativas que estão vindo à tona, elas não vêm através dos meios de comunicação, né, do celular, da internet, elas vêm em consequência dos movimentos sociais. Os movimentos sociais que estão vindo, a periferia de São Paulo, eles têm um nome que eles falam aqui, perifuturismo. Perifuturismo. Assim como eles falam, os indígenas, ancestralidade do futuro. Então, são termos que os movimentos sociais, nas suas bases mais autênticas, estão trazendo. E isso vai forçando, né? Vai forçando e o sistema acaba absorvendo. Então, hoje, por exemplo, é muito louco, mas eu sei que os streamings americanos que produzem, né, os canais tipo Netflix, todos esses canais de TV, agora eles têm uma cláusula que toda vez que você produzir uma série televisiva, ou você tem que ter uma cota onde a negritude esteja representada, os LGBTs. Aí você fala, nossa, mas a Netflix pensando isso? Aí você vai ver que, na verdade, é que existe, com essa pressão social desses corpos estarem muito mais representados hoje, cresceu a demanda de quererem acessar essas narrativas. Portanto, dá mais dinheiro. E agora você vê... Enfim, eu acho que a gente está vivendo uma grande mutação, né? Um momento de muita mutação mesmo. Um momento muito rico.
Thank you both. Jury?
Well, first, I want to back up and say how pleased I am and how pleased I think Leila and Mateo must be to have Eliane and Maritza here. And one of the reasons has to do with why we chose the 2 films that we did and the 2 locuses, countries that we chose. And it has to do with the name of the mini festival. And we named it From the Other Side of the Border. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do that is that the migration story, on which a lot of people naturally in the United States are are fixed. They're fixed on a particular border. It's the border between Mexico and the United States. And that, of course, is a border that is the border behind Mexico as a whole chain of other countries all the way down through Latin America. But it's a border that's fixed either on the Caribbean, you know, at the Gulf where Florida is, or California as the border where it, you know, where it kind of where things start and where things take place and where conflict is. Even though there are, you know, many refugees and migrants from other parts, it tends to be a locus of the discussion and a locus even of study. And so we were thinking from the other side of the border, what if we shifted the border totally and we looked at a border between two countries that are on an island, say Hispaniola, or we looked at a very multinational, plurinational, large population, big country, just like the United States, which is receiving, as Eliane said, people from all over the world. And by the way, not just today, but has always. These are former settler colonies, so they've always been receiving people from all over the world. But from Brazil, what does the whole question of migration and race look like? And so we're already greatly pleased that just having that other optic, because both of you are bringing in your work and in your film work and in your writing and in the discussion from the other side of the border, a different border and another side of the border. So I wanted to just note that why the selection and why we're already very pleased to, you know, to have both of you and the ideas that you've raised. I wanted to take us a little bit, if I could, to ask you to go to two questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask two, and I'm asking them to both of you, but they may kind of fit together. One is about this complication of belonging in each of the spaces that you've been working in and that you've created your narratives, whether visual, in film, or in writing. Belonging seems very, very complicated. When is a refugee a refugee? Can you be a refugee inside your own country? That was asked, I think, in the film Stateless. What does it mean to be of African descent? If you are of African descent, is that new for Brazil to have a population of African descent? No, but you have a population, an additional migrating, immigrating population, refugee population that's from Africa. So does that complicate the question of African descent or citizen? You know, who has citizenship rights and who doesn't? I think at some point in Hotel Cambridge, people who are citizens of Brazil, they didn't come from outside, but they feel themselves to be lacking in certain rights of citizens, and they're Brazilian. Or national. When is a person a national? When is a person not? So I just wanted to know how you see the question of belonging in your writings and in the films. And then the second question is to just keep to a theme that has already been brought up, geography. And we're talking, you're speaking, both of you, to us in a United States audience or a US-based audience about two very different geographies. And in watching the films, both of them today, I was struck in each one by a particular geography. So in the film Stateless, my eyes and sound, but mainly my eyes, fixed on batés, the sugarcane fields, and how, you know, sugar is grown on both sides of that border. But in the beginning, the film begins with a little girl and she's running through fields and along a river. So, and then later in the film, the lady who is the attorney, she goes to the baté, she visits sugarcane communities. That's how it's translated in English. On the other hand, in Hotel Cambridge, it's the building. That apartment building, to me, becomes a geography almost of its in and of itself. Yes, it's in São Paulo, but that building becomes so much of a geography. So I wanted to ask you both about, if you just speak a little bit, how you feel belonging is complicated in the spaces that you're drawing your narratives from, or that you're following people's own narratives. And also those two particular geographies, the sugarcane fields and the apartment building.
Yeah, about citizenship and geography. There is something that Hispaniola, that Quisqueya, I prefer to call it by one of the original names, that Quisqueya has shares with the United States and the Mexico border, in that, again, it has to do with narratives and the myths of immigration, because in Quisqueya, Dominicans and Haitians are the same people, okay? And people have been flowing across that border since the beginning of colonialism. As a matter of fact, there were so many points throughout Dominican history where they would encourage slaves from Haiti, from the French side, in order to debilitate France, encourage slaves from the Haitian side to come over and gain their freedom in the Dominican side. That is how complex the history is. I mean, it's a permeable border and always has been. And the family relations, like, it's very, yeah. You know, this thing about citizenship now that Dominican Republic is trying to put forth, it's citizenship always becomes an issue during political times, prior to an election. And I'm going to give a very personal example here, you know, because now last year, I forget how many people, 170,000 supposedly Haitians were kicked out of the Dominican Republic. But you are Haitian if you are Black. So how many native-born Dominicans are shipped to a country that they've never known? You see what I mean? It's a racial thing, and it's historic also. My dad passed away at 91. Only when he was 90 years old and he was a super Christian. As a matter of fact, Seventh-day Adventist, so conservative man, right? Only at the age of 90, when he was delirious because he had just gone through surgery and, you know, happened to be talking to me, you know, the necia who's always asking impertinent questions, right? Only in that conversation did it come out that at the age of 19, he converted to Christianity and became Seventh-day Adventist, to try to pass as something else. And he turned his back away from, you know, his family had to do with La Cofradía del Espíritu Santo. He turned back on all of his culture and his family. I grew up not knowing any part of that family. And he did it as a means of survival, the same way that a lot of people who survived the Holocaust never speak to their children about it. That was the case with my dad. Why? Because it's a misnomer to label the Haitian massacre as a Haitian massacre. A lot of those people that were, you know, described as Haitian were Dominican citizens. But by virtue of being Black, you must be other. So it's like the state of Blackness prevents us from having citizenship. We're always considered the other. And the same thing with the United States, because living in New Mexico, I mean, talk about people here say, we didn't cross the border crossed us. You know, I mean, people have been coming back and forth through these borders historically, even before the United States was the United States. But all of a sudden, there are all these artificial notions of citizenship, and they are based on race, because, you know, how many people overstay their residency once they come here for a visit from European countries or other places, but the obsession is always brown invasion, Black invasion. So yeah, we have to start, it's a complex issue, and I'm just encouraging anybody listening to think historically about, because colonialism is alive and well today, and it's based on colonialism that immigration laws are still formulated, and that it is still decided who's an authentic citizen and who isn't. Enough said.
Nossa, é incrível escutar esse resumo, né? Porque às vezes eu perco completamente a palavra, né? Vamos dizer assim, palavra no sentido de criar um significado, né? Porque é tudo tão tremendo que acontece, né? É tudo tão complexo demais, e ao mesmo tempo eu fico pensando, né? Fazer parte, né? Fazer parte do quê? E se vale fazer parte, se não vale fazer parte, o que está atrás dessa pergunta, né? E aí eu penso assim que se você vê, por exemplo, no caso da Palestina, existe uma lei que é a lei que é uma lei, vamos dizer assim, norteadora dos refugiados, que é o direito ao retorno. O direito ao retorno à sua pátria. Todo refugiado, pelo Estatuto do Refugiado da Acnur, todo refugiado tem o direito de retorno. Se você pega, no caso dos palestinos, olha como isso é complicado, porque vocês sabem que na história do refúgio dos palestinos, uma boa parte da Palestina desapareceu. Então, por exemplo, eles reivindicam isso, como fazer parte de um povo que está desaparecendo do mapa. Então, isso coloca eles numa posição muito, muito complexa. Por outro lado, você vê isso que a Loída estava falando, né? Vocês imaginam aqueles senhores, homens, na sua grande maioria brancos, né? Quando eles estavam partindo, fazendo... Assim como eles partiram no mapa e falaram a Palestina vai ser aqui, eles fizeram isso com a África, né? Todo mundo sabe isso. E é escandaloso. Hoje, a história sabe, a história oficial, vamos dizer, já reconhece como isso foi feito. Existem documentos que provam como isso foi feito, que é da maneira mais aleatória, vamos dizer, mais superficial. E o que eu fico muito espantada, gente, é isso, sabe? Que no fundo, o que está provocando todo esse caos, inclusive até o fato de a gente estar muito perto da extinção, né, humana em frente às mudanças climáticas, que está ficando cada vez mais impossível, e ao mesmo tempo aí, do lado, uma guerra explode aqui, outra ali, quer dizer, as pessoas saíram da pandemia, já esqueceram, né? Já ninguém lá fala, voltou à vida, a grande maioria retomou a vida do ponto que tinha parado, né? Então, eu quero dizer, essa engrenagem, ela é tão bem azeitada, mas, no fundo, se trata do quê? Se trata de um grupo de pessoas privilegiadas, uma luta de classe que eu acredito que o nosso sistema ele está agonizando já. Ele está numa fase de agonia, de decadência. Mas a gente sabe que, mesmo nessa fase de decadência, ele vai arrastar muitas vidas, milhares de vidas. Eu não sei se vocês viram a última notícia que teve aqui, que saiu no Brasil, que foram milhões de vacinas vencidas, porque a gente não gosta de falar o nome dele, a gente fala o cujo. A coisa, né? Porque a coisa fez de um jeito, e aí você vai ver, sabe, Loída, eu queria entender esse fenômeno, o que faz... Aí eu lembro um pouco da Hannah Arendt, né, quando ela fala da banalidade do mal. Porque você fala, gente, como é que justifica metade, mais de 100, né, quase 100 milhões de pessoas votarem num cara que é a imbecilidade, como é que chama? É a coisa mais superficial, mais Então, você fala que mundo é esse, né? Essas inversões, como que o ser humano consegue, né? Enfim, fazer parte, né? Fazer parte desse... Enfim.
Eu sei que há duas traduções de belonging. É o fazer parte e também há o pertencer. Então, eu entendo a sua fala de ambos os lados, Eliane, do pertencer e de fazer parte, belonging, essas noções. Eu não sei se podia responder cada um sobre aquelas geografias específicas dos dois filmes, ou dos dois países, das duas narrativas, de cana-de-açúcar, o batei, como eles chamam, sugarcane communities, e o outro é o apartamento, o prédio, apartamento, numa cidade enorme de São Paulo. Se pudesse falar cada um sobre esses dois lugares, essas geografias que são tão implicados que quase, para mim, eram quase characters. They were almost personalities in the film, the apartment building and the sugarcane field. And then after that, I think that our moderator, principal moderator, may be opening up for comments or questions from the participants, right?
Oh, am I supposed to be answering that question about the sugar cane? Okay. When I think of sugar, of the batés and the horrors that exist in the batés, it conjures to me the cotton fields in the US. But we say cotton fields and we think the past. So it conjures to me the mines today and factories today, meaning this is why I say that so much of colonialism is alive and well, because capitalism is built on it. And it's specifically built on the exploitation of others. And if we don't confront that, it keeps repeating itself. Yeah, the batés, you know, and that's the irony of what the Dominican Republic is doing, deporting the people whose labor they desperately need, because Dominicans aren't willing to do them. The same way that in the United States, deporting labor that, you know, Americans don't want to do. That's the irony. But in the Dominican Republic, it's a travesty, because it's not just the deportations, it's the lands that get left behind, the apartments, the valuables that get left behind by the deported. It's just random. You can go, you know, people are in terror of coming out of their houses. And the batés are like these communities in and of themselves that Dominicans don't want to see what is happening there. It's a form of slavery. Let's not like dress it up in pretty clothes. It's a form of slavery. And you know, and just to talk about the political situation in the Dominican Republic, I was talking to Xiomara Fortuna, the singer who came to participate last year, whatever, but she was telling me, and I know this has always existed in the Dominican Republic, where pelo malo, etc., but it's gotten so extreme now that little Black boys are sent back home to have their heads shaved. They have to have it as like short, so that no curl is visible in their hair. That is how anti-Black sentiments, even from childhood, are passed on. If you're a little girl, your hair better be relaxed. It's this forceful subscribing to notions of beauty and notions of belonging and notions of citizenship, and they're all related to race. And talking about gender, one of the atrocities that's being committed in the Dominican Republic is, and this is banned by, you know, NATO and United Nations, etc., deporting pregnant women. You know, the violence done to pregnant women, just, you know, deported randomly because, oh my God, it's a Black woman, she must be Haitian. We don't want that child being born in the Dominican Republic. So it is very, so when I think, going back to my dad, because I remember growing up, I was like, oh my God, why is my dad so racist and anti-Black, although he's darker than me? But you come to understand, he turned back against everything. You know, becoming a Christian, when those who look like you, when those who practice like you are not even worth guns, but machetes, you know, because he was only 19 when the Haitian massacre took place. I mean, of course, as a form of survival, he's going to try to pass. He's going to turn away from his ancestral religions. It's heartbreaking, but I understand it. You know, and every little kid in the Dominican Republic who's sent back to get his head shaved, and every little girl that has her hair relaxed, they know. You know, so yes, they're not going to identify as Black even when they're Black, which is the case. I remember when I went back to the DR for the first time when I was 18, and I had to get papers done, and I, when told, you know, how do I identify, I'm like, negra. They're like, no, tú no eres negra, you're not Black, you are India. You know, and so I say we're a myth, you know, that Black people in the Dominican Republic, we're the phantoms of history, because we're what nobody wants to recognize or acknowledge. And we haunt the society, which is why, you know, we're like boogie monsters, whatever, because when something is not acknowledged and dealt with, we haunt. And so that's why there's this terror of Blackness, because history hasn't been acknowledged. We're the ghosts, we're what people are afraid of. And you know, and it's almost like our existence we exist only in myth. You know, we're the boogie monster, we're the Haitian, and it's just back to narratives. The more narratives and history is uncovered and shared, because that's what's happening in the United States, where Black people and LGBT and Latino, they're trying to wipe us out of curriculums. And when that happens, you know, we become invisible, you know, we become the other, and we have to fight the invisibility of silence.
Eliane, I don't know if you wanted to say something about the apartment building, and then Mateo, you can tell people how to put up questions.
A outra face da moeda, né? Então, ouvindo esse depoimento da Loída, né? Que parece que ela está falando também do Brasil, né? Da população do Brasil. Agora, gente, o movimento de ocupação de prédios abandonados em São Paulo é uma das coisas mais incríveis que surgiram nos últimos anos, que eu acho que, em termos de força de movimento social, é muito parecido com o que é o MST, Movimento do Sem Terra. O movimento do sem teto é urbano. E o que o que é incrível, inclusive, Mateus, lá no começo, pelo menos eles traduziram aqui, que você falou, a invasão de prédios, né? A primeira coisa que se aprende quando você entra no movimento de ocupação é diferenciar o que é invasão e o que é ocupação. Então, não se fala invasão com movimento de moradia, porque, na verdade, 80% dos prédios do centro de São Paulo estão abandonados para especulação, vocês entendem? Com uma quantidade gigante de trabalhadores sem teto. Nada mais previsível e nada mais maravilhoso do que ocupar os prédios que estão abandonados. Invadir é quando tem gente. E é o que eles falam. A gente não invade, a gente ocupa. E quando eles ocupam, eles fazem uma verdadeira revolução no bairro. Porque eles trazem, primeiro, eles limpam o prédio. É aquilo que a Carmen fala no filme, né? Estou cansada de ser faxineira do governo. Que eles tiram caçambas e caçambas de lixo do prédio. Enfim, gente, a gente pode falar horas sobre a cultura do movimento de sem-tetos aqui de São Paulo. É um dos movimentos mais bonitos de se ver. Quando a gente fez o filme Era Hotel Cambridge, a gente trouxe os refugiados para a ocupação. E eu gostaria de falar muito isso, que hoje em dia eu acho que se o cinema ainda pode ser transformador, não está mais hoje na tela de exibição, porque as telas se multiplicaram de uma forma absurda e há uma disputa de telas o tempo inteiro. E o cinema, ele não consegue mais fazer o papel que ele tinha antes dessa revolução digital. Mas tem um lugar que ele ainda faz, onde ele pode ser transformador, que é no momento em que ele se faz, no processo de criação dele, mais do que no resultado, no processo de fazer o filme. E o Cambridge, eu acho que ele foi muito transformador nesse sentido, porque o que aconteceu? Entraram os refugiados dentro do movimento de ocupação. Você imagina o que foi eles se olharem. O movimento de moradia começou a entender que o refugiado representava uma pessoa política extremamente forte para o movimento e importante. E o refugiado olhou para o sem-teto e reconheceu que eles tinham algo em comum, que o mesmo pessoal que colocava a mesma, vamos dizer assim, né, a mesma política, o mesmo sistema que provocava essas guerras absurdas, né, esses conflitos que provocou os refúgios, que provocam os refúgios, eles, por outro lado, sob a mesma base, sofrem o que sofrem, né? Assim, esse total abandono de tudo que é essencial para a vida. E eles começaram a se olhar assim. E isso produziu muita coisa nova. Claro, gente, que tem conflito, né? A gente sempre vai ter conflito, né? Não foi um encontro fácil, não foi um encontro, vamos dizer assim, romântico. É muito difícil, mas ele está acontecendo. Eu acho que isso é uma boa coisa.
Thank you both to Loída Maritza and Eliane. Feel free to add your questions to the Q&A. If you want, you can write them. But I wanted to add some more what we've talked until now. I was thinking also, like, in the film Stateless, like, there's a negative connotation to the term, of course, because as being stateless, like Haitian people in Dominican Republic and even Black Dominicans who are not considered as nationals in Dominican Republic, they are stripped down of many civic rights, we'll say, right? But I wanted to ask the opposite question: if migration, even if being a refugee, like in the film, in Eliane's film, can have also, I don't know if a positive connotation, but at least as it can be like a productive force and can also impact, for example, in politicizing the place where they are coming. If they can have a positive impact and organize, I think like Eliane's film shows that a lot, like how they not just talking about migration, not just people from other countries, but nordestinos who go to São Paulo and change the political dynamics of the city. So I wanted to ask you if we can see migration, and even as painful as it can be, as nostalgic as it can go. So I remember this really beautiful scene from Edo Bridge with the Palestinian young man and his uncle, and they are singing a song. So even if it can be very painful, but I wanted to ask if migration and refugees and all of that can have also an effect, a positive effect in politicizing the place where they are going.
Oh, absolutely. And just, I think it's a positive whenever people get to understand whoever they've considered as the other from multiple nations. And we're a global, borders are disappearing. And I think that's why people are fighting so madly, like why governments are fighting so madly to reinstate them, because borders are disappearing. The world isn't having it. And especially with environmental migrations and political migrations are going to continue happening, and people are going to continue mixing. And it's that phobia of what happens when so many people come together that nations fight against, because okay, to answer your question more directly, yes, I think migration can be a powerful force for good, because it prevents a nation from being as homogenous as it pretends to be. And I say pretend because the United States was never homogenous. It's just an image that it portrays. The Dominican Republic was never homogenous, etc. So what I find really encouraging also is younger generations, because they're coming in contact with so many different types of people, not just immigrants, not just migrants, but LGBTQ, just everything. They are realizing that all these categories that were devised by institutions afraid of change, that these definitions are superfluous. They have nothing to do. It's just we're humans. And that gives me faith in terms of what's happening with the younger generation. Now I'm having an allergy attack, so I'm going to mute.
It's muted.
Yes, I was passing on to,
Eliane.
I didn't want to talk too much, so I was passing it on to Eliane.
Mas você sabe, Loída, que isso aqui é palmas, né? Que eu aprendi outro dia. Não, eu acho que a Loída respondeu, é isso. Eu acho que é uma ótima síntese. Não tenho o que acrescentar. Eu acho que tem muita riqueza mesmo dessa diversidade, né? Com certeza. É uma coisa que a gente vê, né? Não é uma ideia. A gente vê acontecendo.
Thank you both. Maybe another asking the audience if they want to add anything, ask anything else. They can write it in the Q&A. Or if not, maybe, I don't know, Leila or Jerry want to add something else?
I have hundreds of questions from both of the films,
Eles
but I
estão
don't want to.
aqui, gente?
I don't want to occupy the whole space, and just wanted to make sure that that our audience could put something up in the Q&A. But while we're waiting, in each film there were things that particularly struck me, and I think for Eliane, one of them was the geography of the building, and how the building itself almost became a character in the film. And the other was about Occupy, and how Occupy means different things. Occupy Wall Street, which took place here, or Occupy Tahrir Square, which took place in Egypt. But this occupying an abandoned building is something different, and the whole social movement aspect. But I wanted to ask you, but I think that you said a lot about it. Maybe you could just add this question: when they were organizing it, and they were seriously, in fact, both films, I think, focus organizing and mobilizing people in a very interesting way. I think it's a good film. Both of them are good films, not just for the question of immigration and race, but also for the question of social movements and political organizing on two different terrains and two different sets of circumstances. But the Hotel Cambridge, to me, is a whole lesson in organizing. And one of the things that struck me was that they were using disorder as a way to make order. I'm hoping that gets interpreted right. Estavam a utilizar a desordem ou a falta de ordem para criar uma ordem. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because you must have seen it day after day, week after week, when you were filming, how they used, as a movement, as a mobilized population of one building, how they used disorder, or how disorder was almost a form of order, or making order for them, for the occupants. I hope that makes sense.